wrote that it was interesting and relaxing. And I can definitely echo that sentiment just to watch you. It's a very meditative, kind of slow process. And it seems to kind of really, I don't know, calm. It is very calming. So especially for this rainy day, it's just the perfect activity. And I have a couple of thoughts just like to connect to the demo that you just did. So you were talking about how this is definitely a practice that people who have an artistic practice, so those who practice fine art and things like that, can really tap into. But it's also something that, especially for folks at home right now looking for activities to do, that it's something that anyone can do, just as long as they're kind of bringing their own flair to it. And I'm looking around at all my books, and it's like you could just pull a book off a shelf and get a couple of fun words and kind of just practice that way. And then you mentioned making a handmade card, and right now it's such I think a special sentiment to send someone a letter or a handmade card, and what better way to practice your hand lettering than thinking of someone that you care about and sending them that message. So thank you for sharing that with us. I definitely want to open the floor. I have questions, and I thought it would be great to talk with you about your process and your background and how you came to this work. But first, I want to share my screen and just show our viewers some of the work that you've done for this exhibition. And so, as I mentioned earlier, this is a project that you've been working on with Alyssa Rapp, and you both have worked so hard to put on this new exhibition at the Newhouse Center for Contemporary Art at Snug Harbor called Old Timers, New Starts, Composite Darkroom Manipulations. And the project is this beautiful collaboration of photography and your type. And so I'm just kind of highlighting, this is a photo of Amna, who has a threading practice, and I don't remember exactly where she's located, but it's just such a beautiful image. I also want to share, so I'll also hop over to, this is Neil's Upholstery. So these are some local businesses that the folks tuning in might recognize. And so you've designed the logos for each of these images. And I think we have one more I can share, this one, which I love. And this was the signature image on our postcard and all of the imagery that we've been using for the show. So just a little taste of that for those who are tuning in. So let me just pull up my questions. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's start off. If you could just share a little bit about yourself. I know I did an intro earlier, but just a little bit about yourself, your artwork, and how you've come to where you are now.
Yeah, so I'm an artist from Staten Island, born and raised. I've always been interested in lettering since I was a little kid. There are two things I would notice on trips were the graffiti and the business signs. So it was a sign for a bodega or anything with lettering would just fascinate me, because to me, lettering is almost like people. We're at the core, we're all the same, but there's so many different styles and types and looks. It's just, they all have their own personality, and just little changes can mean so much. And you can, for something that's so limited, an alphabet of, the same letters that we use for all different words, you can do an awful lot with them if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, even just in your demonstration, you showed us 3 different types of penmanship, and they all had just such a different feel to it. And you're right, just like the possibilities are almost endless. So as a kid, you were drawn to those, you know, kind of whenever you saw imagery, you were just kind of like pulled into it. So your exhibition, Old Timers, New Starts, opened just a couple of weeks ago at the Newhouse Center for Contemporary Art at Snug Harbor. And this project, as I mentioned, is a collaboration. How did you come up with the idea to tell these stories of local businesses, and why the mediums that you and Alyssa chose of photography and hand lettering?
Yeah, so in my own practice, I've been using lettering since I was in high school, really, and it took different forms over the years, but that was for a long time was my primary kind of genre in what I was doing, whether it be collage or ink or paint or any number of media. It was all text based. And I had met Alyssa drawing in her notebook on the ferry boat one day, and turns out she was a photographer primarily, but also a kind of a multidisciplinary artist and crafts person. And we'd known each other for a while, and we thought it would be great if we could combine my lettering and your photography in the darkroom and kind of print things together. We just didn't know what it was going to be, so we sat on it because we didn't want to just start doing this project kind of with no direction. And then Alyssa went to Wallach's Camera Shop, which is on Greenleaf on Staten Island, and was telling me, she got into a talk with the owner, Sal, and she was telling me, hey, he's got a lot of stories and there's so much history to the place. I'd really like to interview them. And I was like, that's it. You take photos of this guy and his business, and then I'll take a quote from the interview and draw that and combine that in the darkroom. And we started trying to do that, and it's exceptionally hard to try to get a good quote that's memorable and that they say naturally, that you're not kind of coaxing out of them, and to get it to fit in a portrait. So they're like, maybe we use this as a way to bring attention to the business alongside the business owner. So I kind of did like renewed logo types for these businesses. That started with Wallach's. The second one we did was Mandolin Brothers, and we just saw all these small businesses that were on Staten Island, and they stood the test of time, even though they're in industries that are generally struggling. You don't see, film cameras and film photography. It's getting a little bit more popular now, but by and large, it's been thrown by the wayside, much like hand lettered typography. So we thought using two dying art forms or crafts, because lettering it started, definitely was seen more as craft than fine art, and photography when it first came out was seen as craft. It's documenting, it's not being artistic. Ideas have switched about both, but we decided to combine those and kind of mirror the techniques and the trades of these older businesses that the Old Timers, New Starts kind of started out with.
Yeah, one of the things that stands out to me is just like how each font is so different, and I was wondering how you came to choose that for each business. Like, was it part of their personality that you felt kind of comes out in the lettering? Like, how did you come to that?
Yeah, so we spend a decent amount of time in each person's space. So part of that, part of those decisions is just an emotional kind of the feeling I get when I'm thinking about our visit. Part of it is where my mind is just at when I sit down to start making sketches. And the third part is more practical, and that's looking at the images we have and kind of figuring out what kind of composition will work and visually be interesting, but also will technically work with the process we're doing. So I'm drawing these, each image has a drawing, and that's done on a physical drawing done on clear Mylar plastic. So that serves as like a second negative when Alyssa is in a dark room printing the work. So light shines through, and depending on if I want the text to be black or white, I either blacken the text or all the area except the text. And, you know, I had to learn about darkroom photography just to understand the process enough to be able to collaborate. Otherwise, it was just never going to work. And if you look at the examples, you know, you can see the hand process to it, because it's not a perfect process. It's not digital. But we hope that's part of the charm to it.
Yeah, it definitely is. As you pointed out in the demo, it's like what gives it that sense of uniqueness and that sense of personality. So that definitely comes out in the work that's up at the Newhouse. And as you said, that was a kind of a several year process of you and Alyssa kind of working with these local businesses, trying to figure out how to best represent them in the exhibition. And it took quite a lot of work. And
you know, it started in 2014, and it was just a kind of a project without much of a direction, but it was a passion project. And then, you know, I think it was probably 2 years into doing it that I said, you know, I think we could probably get a grant for this. So we applied for our first grant that either one of us had ever applied for, and we got a DCA Premier grant through Staten Island Arts, and we presented the first exhibition, which was at the Snug Harbor, and it was just old timers, small box in the 21st century. And then that idea, you know, people seem to like it, and we like making it, but we weren't sure, do we do the same thing and expand it? And then, you know, about a year, we're like, you know what? We knew that it needed to be new Americans, especially with the, you know, climate currently. We thought it was important to bring attention to the contributions that immigrants make to all our communities. And you know, a lot of people don't realize that immigrants have a higher rate of entrepreneurship than American-born citizens do. So a lot of the businesses that you see around, you know, your communities wouldn't be the same without immigrants as well.
Absolutely. That's such an important point. And I know that that's definitely shaping a lot of the themes and message that you're trying to communicate through this show. What I kind of love about that is that there's this sort of oral history component. Like you're documenting through photography, you're taking that and inspiration and adding your type onto that, and then like how does that translate into a sense of community? And so I think you're bringing together, like through you and Alyssa's work, you're creating this platform for small businesses to see themselves as entrepreneurs and in some way a creative force in our community that maybe we don't always look to. And so, so that oral history piece for me is really exciting. I know that you've spent a lot of time learning about each subject and each business and kind of really like tailoring this project to fit that vision. So I don't know if you have anything else to say about that. That's just something that stands out to me as really important.
Yeah, you know, this project could have very easily been a you know, a Tumblr blog, you know, photos of business owners and some text about them, but it just wouldn't be the same. You know, we like to have a physical object, you know, a photograph made with silver. You know, it's a chemical reaction that creates a physical object that can be passed down and held, and there's a value to that. A perceived value in something like that, and a nostalgia. And there was just such great stories that we were told from these businesses, whether it's in the new ones, you know, why they came to this country, why they decided to come to Staten Island, maybe who taught them their trade, or the person that they're teaching their trade to. And with the older businesses, you know, we learned what businesses were speakeasies, you know, back in the day, and what businesses our third, fourth generation, who learned their trade from their grandfather, in another country when they were an immigrant for the first time. So there's just like rich wealth of information that we've gotten and are slowly disseminating onto the project website and whatnot, and through Instagram and whatnot. But yeah, we felt like we were very lucky to be able to speak to some of these people, because if not us, who? Because
Right.
so many oral traditions are lost now, because people aren't interested. It just takes one generation to not be interested for something to be completely lost. So we're trying to do a little part to preserve some of that.
Absolutely. I'd be remiss to not acknowledge, obviously, right now we're all kind of sheltering at home, and a lot of businesses are suffering as a result, and we don't know, how that'll go in the future. Do you happen to know if any of the businesses that you worked with are currently open and, kind of in need of support? Yeah.
Yeah. So if I know a few are for sure. I know Phil Am Foods. Phil Am, this is a Filipino American food store and restaurant. They're open. Obviously, it's takeout delivery. Veronica's Bakery as well. The same for takeout and delivery. And then Tune It Up Auto. Tune It Up Auto, they're considered essential. So if you need your car fixed at this time, it's a great time probably because hopefully you don't have to go anywhere. So.
Yeah. Hopefully your car is fine, but if not,
Yes.
and I know we'll highlight this again later, but on Instagram at MFA Collaborative, that's where you're sharing a lot of these stories. And so if you are interested as a viewer in finding out more about these businesses and whether or not you can support them, especially now at this time of need, you can follow on Instagram MFA Collaborative and learn more there. So let's talk a little bit about you. So how did you make the decision, as though one necessarily makes the decision to become an artist? How did you come to that and decide to dedicate your life to this work?
It's the decision's made unconsciously or subconsciously long before I think you ever consciously make it. Ever since I was a child, I just really wanted to make art. I wasn't always the best artist in my class, but I always tried harder than most of the people to make something that was good or that I liked and other people liked. So yeah, I guess I was always on the road to be an artist. And then, it came time to go to school, and I didn't go to art school. I went to business school, and throughout business school, all I could think about was making art. So after I came out of college, I tried to get into the marketing world for a bit, and it just didn't feel fulfilled or interested even. So it came back around to art and making art with more of a kind of serious intention than before, and then trying to get a job in the arts as well.
And I know that you're also working as a curator of fine art and a gallerist in New York City. So for the emerging curators that are listening in, how did you get into that? And what is a day at the gallery, I guess, in normal times? What does that look like?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're someone who's looking to curate shows, to be an independent curator, to write about art, to kind of be involved in any aspect at all, nobody's going to give you that opportunity. Especially if you're in New York, it's way too competitive, and there's people who are probably more qualified than you looking for the same job. No one's going to come up to you and just ask you to do it. You have to make those opportunities for yourself. So my advice would be just do it. If you want to curate a show, find a space. If it's not a gallery, start at a coffee shop or an artist studio or anywhere you can get a space with walls. Curate a show, that's within your means, that's manageable, with artists that would be inclined to show their work at a space like that, and just do it. Always ask, because if you don't ask, they can't tell you yes. And if you do ask, the worst they can tell you is no. So create your own opportunities, and always ask.
Yeah, that's great advice. I guess I was also going to ask if you have any advice for young artists. I feel like it would probably be similar, but maybe, kind of just, I think that no one's going to do it for you is really sound advice. If you want it, you have to do what you can to make that happen.
Yeah. So, for artists specifically, concentrate on getting good, and then concentrate on getting really good. Somebody said this, I don't know who originally said it, but, get so good that they can't possibly ignore you, and then hit the pavement and reach out. You know what I mean? Social media is amazing. I'm not the best social media person, but I try, and I know it's important, and I always make an effort to try to stay as consistent as possible. If you're good at it, great. If you're really good at social media, you can be lacking in other areas of your artistic practice and get attention, at least, and get people to see it. And, after that, it's up to them whether, they think it's good or not. But practice, just constantly make art. If you don't want to make it, don't wait for inspiration. Again, inspiration generally doesn't come to you. And if it does, it's from outside kind of stimulus. So get into a position where you can be inspired. And if you're not inspired, make work anyway, because you can figure things out that's going to help you later. Also, as someone who's an artist who works in the art industry as well, if you're an artist looking to get into galleries or whatnot, do your research on galleries. Find galleries that show work that's similar to your work. Because if you send emails and submissions to galleries that are completely outside of your realm, it's going to do two things for you. You're going to get rejected, and it's not going to feel good. So it's going to be a lot of disappointment, and it's just going to waste your time, because it was probably a no before you even asked, because you were asking the wrong places. If you do your research in advance, you have a much higher success rate. If it's a gallery that shows only photographs and you make landscape watercolors, it's just, you should never even have bothered, in that case. So try to find something that's similar to the work you do, and target them, because they're going to be much better for you anyway, because they're going to have a market to kind of promote your work already.
That's excellent advice. So for those of you listening out there, you have a lot of work to do and research, but it'll make you stronger and wiser in the long run. Thank you, Raul. For some of our listeners who might not know about the vibrant arts community on Staten Island, can you shout out some cool projects and spaces that people should know about?
Yeah, so if you're watching this, I assume you already know about the Newhouse Center for Contemporary Arts. If you don't, and you're someone that just kind of got linked in through this, you should follow them, because they're kind of one of the tried and true locations on Staten Island for arts and culture, visual arts, performing arts, music. Apart from that, which I assume you probably already know about, I think the Creative Photographers Guild, which is located very close to you, is an often slept on gallery on Staten Island. It's a small location. It's on, I want to say, Tyson Street, right by Stug Harbor. And photographers, digital, analog, everything in between, phone, show their work there. It's a kind of monthly co-op space, but it's a really cool space, and something that's close to another space, which is always great. If you find things in close proximity, it helps people make the trip to Staten Island if they're not already from there.
Absolutely.
Also,
so much to do.
Yeah. Hub 17 on Wave Street, another space. It's got fine art exhibition space, video production, photography, studio, kind of all in one place. Have to say Staten Island Arts, Art Space, which is in the Irby Center. Staten Island Arts has been a consistent supporter of this project, so I'd be remiss to not mention them. And then just a bit of shameless self-promotion. The 100 Gates project came to Staten Island, and I was lucky enough to paint a series of roll gates for them there at the Staten Island Probation Office, which is on Bay Street.
Cool. That's awesome. I love the 100 Gates project, and I know a lot of people out there are familiar with it, but you're pointing to this whole corridor from like Stapleton through over to Snug Harbor, where there's just so much to see, and I think sometimes people don't realize it, and it is a little spread out. But you know, when we're able to get back outside, you know, there's so much to do. So Staten Island is totally happening in terms of arts and culture, and Raul, you're a part of that, so that's super exciting. So I did want to just ask, if someone was serious and wanting to continue their hand lettering skills, and I know you mentioned that there's some books out there, like what would be your advice to them to move forward?
Yeah. So you definitely want to go for books. You get your most bang for your buck. There are some really great old books that are now within the public domain, so you can download those if you could find them for free. If you can get a physical copy, great, if you can afford it. Most people will not be lucky enough to find a lot of these books, let alone be able to win them at auction or whatnot. But you can find PDFs of a lot of these books on different archive websites, and the Smithsonian probably has some. Strong's Book of Design is really good. Lettering for Commercial Purposes is amazing. The sign painting and show card, sign and show card painting, I believe is the title. There's a whole bunch. If you search hand lettering or sign painting book, or vintage design, you know, there's so many. I've got folders and folders of just reference material that I go through. If I have a certain project, maybe if I'm doing something for a client and they want, you know, 1920s, I can bring up books that were made around that time and kind of look back and be like, okay, well, that's generally how I'm going to do this letter or that letter. And it's just a great resource for what was being done during different times, because it was constantly evolving, and through the nature that every time you paint it or you draw it, it can be slightly different. So if one person has 5 apprentices over their career, those 5 apprentices could come away with slightly different ways of doing the same thing, and that can kind of ripple down. So you see a lot of very similar typefaces with different names throughout the years and different decades. And then you find things that are just unique ways of doing similar things. I would definitely look into any kind of sign painting, for the most part, book. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, it sounds like a very rich history, and lots of resources available for those who are interested. It again, like I keep going back to that sense of like the oral history tradition, that it's a lot of it's passed, you know, from a person, you know, someone to apprentices or students, and that's a really kind of, I think, person to person practice. And so some of that gets lost. So finding the reference materials and books to kind of point back to that history, I think is an excellent way to start. So I just have a couple more questions.
Yeah.
So as part of this exhibition, you and Alyssa have published a book, and this book highlights the stories of the subjects as well as the photography and the typography. Can you tell us a little more about that and where someone could find it online?
Yeah, let me see. So this is the book. Features not only the images, the collaborative images that we make, but also lots of behind the scenes images that for whatever reason didn't make the cut. You know, we try to show here we've got the whole family that works at Tune It Up. And they're just great images that just don't work for our purposes because they're more candid shots or something that isn't a, you know, we go with more pose shots for the most part for these images. Then we've got great behind the scenes stuff, which is cool. And then Alyssa is a fantastic writer, so she writes a bit of text for each business. Yeah. If you want the book, you can email me. So at the moment, we're in between online store situations. So if you want to shoot an email to Raul Barquet art at Gmail, so it's RaulBarquetArt@gmail.com. Just shoot me an email, tell me you want a copy of the book, and let me know where you want it shipped to, and I can get you a quote on shipping, and I can send you a PayPal invoice and get you a book shortly. Yeah, we just have to keep ordering them because being that it's a self-published book, you know, it's not like a publishing company came and made, you know, 10,000 of them. So we're getting them about, you know, 50 at a time. So.
And when we were open at the Newhouse, we were selling the books in person at the exhibition. But for those of you who are so eager to get your copy, you can email Raul. And I did want to give a shout out to Alyssa. She's an excellent writer. And while she couldn't be here with us today, and the focus of this workshop was obviously your skill set, I just want to give her a shout out. So what do you hope audiences will take away from your exhibition, knowing that obviously right now we can't physically be there, but this message and the overall project?
I think it's really interesting that this pandemic has happened right in the middle of this exhibition that's basically pleading with people to support local small businesses because they will not be there if we don't support them. And now we've come to a junction in the road, basically, where we have the option to either support small businesses when they come back, support them now while, you know, the ones that we can support, or don't. If you don't, these businesses will not be here. It's never been more real than right now. You know, at any given month, you know, a bad month could kind of spell the end for a small business, especially now. At this point, every month is a bad month, even if you're, you know, an essential business that's still operating. So support the businesses you can while you can. Basically, that's the takeaway that we've had from the start, and that's the takeaway now.
Yeah, and that's such an important takeaway. And as you mentioned, like the sense of urgency, it does interestingly feel like, you know, the timing just made sense. This show has that overlying message, and I think that's critical. And yes, we should. And so again, if you want to support some of the businesses that are highlighted in this exhibition, you can go to some of the places online that I was about to ask you. So we have MFA Collaborative on Instagram, and where else can we find you?
Yeah, so I'm Raul Barquet Art at everything. So Instagram, the website, the email address, RaulBarquetArt.com, at Raul Barquet Art, Instagram, and then Raul Barquet Art at Gmail. You could also find Alyssa Rapp at Alyssa Rapp Studio on Instagram, and I won't give out her email. But yeah, and then MFA Collaborative is the work we do together.
Great. And we'll be posting through Snug Harbor over the coming weeks, you know, photos and related content to the exhibition just to keep it moving and the momentum going. Thank you, Raul, so much for your time today. The workshop was so cool. I hope everyone out there, whether you followed along or you want to go back and do it later, it's such a perfect day, really, I think, to spend some time drawing and working on hand lettering and such a beautiful history too. So definitely something to look up and explore. You know, now's the perfect time to learn new things. So thank you, Raul. I'm just going to take this moment to thank everyone else for tuning in to Snug Harbor at Home. Special thanks again to our arts programming funders, the Samuel I. Newhouse Foundation, the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs, the Howard Gilman Foundation. Thanks to all of you. And I just want to give a shout out to Snug Harbor. We are a nonprofit organization whose mission is to steward the 83-acre historic campus that we all know and love as a vibrant, locally impactful cultural destination. And the history and cultural legacy of Snug Harbor is something that we share with Staten Islanders, but beyond that, all New Yorkers and for everyone tuning in. So if you wish to make a tax-deductible donation of any amount to support Snug Harbor, you can do so at www.snug-harbor.org/donate, and we appreciate contributions of any amount. It all goes to support our mission, our exhibitions, and the overall preservation of our site. So, show Snug some love. Keep tuning in. Snug Harbor at Home is an exciting new series of live stream events such as this one, hands-on educational activities and virtual explorations and videos. It's a great way to learn what's blooming in our gardens, to experience the dynamic art at the Newhouse Center, and to see what's growing at our heritage farm, all from the safety and comfort of your home. So again, you can find us at www.snug-harbor.org/Snug Harbor at Home to learn more. And I hope you're having a great, peaceful, restorative weekend. It's a rainy Sunday. Raul, I saw you just drink some tea. That's a great thing to do. I'm going to do that now. We hope you're safe and well. Wishing everyone out there a great day. Thank you for tuning into Snug Harbor at Home. Thank you, Raul.
Thank you.
Well,
Have
have a great day, everyone. Bye.